So do talk to us about what your main point of contention is.
Good evening, Hannah, and thank you so much for having us to chat a little bit about tobacco. We don't often get the opportunity. It's about the what they want to do, and secondly about the how they want to do it. We support the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control's objectives of reducing tobacco consumption globally. And we as the sector agree with that. It's about how. And now they're going into the soft underbelly of the value chain, going into farmers and want to forcefully remove them and prevent them from growing tobacco by doing a few things, by preventing government programs and policies that support tobacco growing, by preventing industry programs which support tobacco growing, by limiting the times in which tobacco farmers can plant tobacco, by limiting the area under which tobacco can be grown forcefully and later reducing that area, and by asking governments all over the world to reduce tobacco production at the same time.
But at the end of the day, I think what they're saying in all of this is they would like to stop the growth of tobacco.
Yes, that's certainly what they want, and that's certainly what we don't want, and we have great support all around the world and in Africa, and I carry the mandate for the whole of Africa that we will not tolerate this. And as I said, the second point is, yes, they want to forcefully get tobacco farmers out of tobacco production, but it's about the how. How can you regulate and intrude in farmers' decision-making processes, which are businessmen and should be respected as such, to try and prescribe to them what they should grow, how they should grow it, and what commodities they should grow without consulting the very sector that they want to regulate?
I went to the site and I was looking at some of the principles and some of the guidelines that they've given, and it seems to be, I mean, I haven't spoken to them, but just from the tone of reading some of what is in the way that they prescribe it, there seems to almost be a mistrust for the tobacco industry. Do you get that sense as well?
We absolutely get that sense, and you are spot on. You are 100% correct. You know, we live in a democratic society, we live in an open society, we live in a modern society where governments claim to be transparent and to consult when they make regulation. And the United Nations, which is a very respected body, and the World Health Organization is an agency, somehow they've lost that when it comes to tobacco. So when it comes to tobacco regulation, regulation is made in an exclusionary manner. And that cannot work. It's not sustainable. And the objectives of the FCTC will not be met if that is the way they want to drive guidelines all over the world.
One of the things that they have said, and I'm quoting this, tobacco's interference with health policies. And so this is, they're saying that what the tobacco industry wants, and just in terms of what health is, it's a complete, it's so contradictory that how do you even talk about it? Because what the tobacco industry wants is for people to smoke. And they're saying that's not healthy. Where does the middle ground even come when that is the case?
The tobacco sector, including tobacco farmers, acknowledge that the product we make and manufacture and grow comes with health risks. And therefore, our advice to people is that the best thing to do is not to use tobacco products. But regardless of that, it's still a choice to be made for people over the age of 18.
Isn't that a little bit understated, though, to say it's a health risk? Just, you know, I mean, isn't it a massive health risk for people to smoke?
Tobacco products cause harm to people's health, like many other lifestyle choices do that people do every day. However, we support that. But what we do say is if you want to reduce consumption all over the world, you do that in the spirit of consultation by involving the sector. And why has this happened with tobacco farmers? Because over the past 10, 12 years, the FCTC has been driving extreme regulation all over the world, and they have seen the result is that tobacco consumption is not declining on a global basis. It's very stable.
But also I would like to, I mean, one of the things, I don't know if this would play into it, but then we've got the issue of illegal cigarettes. Does that come into it at all?
Illegal cigarettes is a massive problem. And illegal cigarettes is driven by a couple of factors. And one of the factors is extreme regulation. If you drive extreme regulation and you drive extreme taxation, you create the opportunity for a black market. And because tobacco consumption over the world is very stable, now the FCTC is getting panicky and they are frustrated. And now what they decided is to go to down the supply chain to farmers and say, well, okay, let's go and get farmers forcefully out of tobacco production, because then we cut off the supply. And if there's no tobacco leaf, then tobacco products can't be made, because tobacco products are made from tobacco tobacco coming from the farms.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the employment. When you're talking about the African continent, you've got a country like Zimbabwe, you've got a country like Mali, a country like Malawi, for instance, and even a country like Zambia, where you do have tobacco farming in those countries, and just in terms of how labor intensive it is and how many people that it employs. What would the impact be for the African continent were it to be that, for instance, they do say no more tobacco, can't grow it anymore? What then?
The impact would be massive and it would be disastrous, and there will still be no reduction in consumption. There's no link between tobacco production and the prevalence of smoking. So if you take tobacco farmers out of Africa, all the smokers will still be around. As long as there's a demand for tobacco products, the tobacco will be grown. So if you force tobacco farmers in Africa out of farming, the production will be taken up elsewhere, and those countries will get the benefit of the economic development that tobacco brings. If you look in Africa, more than 500 million kilograms of tobacco produced by millions of people. If you take Tanzania, 90,000 farmers, Zambia, 27,000 farmers, Mozambique, 100,000 farmers. In Malawi, 7 out of 10 people in the economy are either directly or indirectly employed by tobacco. In Kenya, 30,000 farmers. And this excludes their dependents and the laborers. So it will have a massive impact. I'm firmly of the belief that these measures will fail, but it will cause disruption and people lose their livelihoods. We must remember that tobacco in Africa is grown in deep rural areas where other jobs are hard to find. And if we get these farmers and force them out and disrupt them, what will the FCTC then face up to the farmers and say, okay, you've stopped tobacco farming, there are no alternatives. How do we now ensure that you put food on the plates for your children?
Okay, Francois, we do have to end it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for coming in.
You're very welcome.
That was International Tobacco Growers Association Africa Region Chairperson for the Africa Region, Francois van der Merwe, discussing anti-smoking threats to the tobacco growing sector in Africa.